All right, welcome to a special edition of Inside the Birds. Geoff Mosher here with Andrew DiCecco. We're going to do an early Super Bowl LIX preview. It is a rematch of the Super Bowl 2 years ago, the Eagles versus the Chiefs. We didn't know that when we recorded Inside the Birds post-game and Inside the Birds post-game live when Andrew joined us. But we now know, Andrew, it's going to be the Eagles versus the Chiefs. Very familiar. Two franchises, like I said, that just played each other in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. A couple of changes for each team, but also kind of the same nucleus, same foundation. We can talk about Saquon Barkley and Zach Bond. And, of course, you look at the Chiefs, they've got some new guys, too, as well. But from a philosophical standpoint and what makes the team tick standpoint, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes.
That's right.
Handshake in the middle, right? So what is your early takeaway on this matchup the second time around? And when I say that, you know this, but just for our listeners, we're not going through injuries. We're not going through. We know that things will change between now and the start of the game. We're looking at a big picture standpoint.
Well, the Chiefs are a very resilient team. They don't go away quietly. But the Eagles have a defense that will they'll put you to sleep. That defense is smothering. And I think that when you look at, I'm fascinated to see how both of those configurations, how that matchup goes, because Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he finds a way to get it done every single week. And you can say what you will about him or the offense, but he doesn't necessarily have to have the bona fide playmakers on that side of the ball. He's good at improving, making plays outside of structure, throwing the football off platform. So the Eagles are going to have to get him down. But philosophically, Geoff, they're still the same team. They have a tough inside runner. The Eagles have a better defense than when the last time these two teams met. And so that's where I think the biggest discrepancy is. The Eagles are a much more well-rounded team. And what I will say is what's really special about this team is there's a belief and there is a team chemistry that's nothing like I've ever seen. And when you couple that with the leadership of Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, who I have to tell you, I can't recall ever being at a post-game press conference and seeing someone so sullen. That's stuck in his craw for a long time, and I think he's going to go out there trying to make a big point.
Yeah, Andrew, the line opened at Chiefs 1.5, which shows you just how razor thin this game is expected to be. Mm-hmm. I think this has the chance to be an epic Super Bowl. I think both of these teams are about as close to flawless as you can get. Their records show that. Their romps through the playoffs show that. They do have flaws, but they are so talented in other areas that they are able to cover up those flaws and play at such a high level, better than any other teams that were in the NFL. I believe the Eagles have the best 53-man roster in the NFL. But when you look at the Chiefs, they may not match up man for man the same way, but they have got special Hall of Fame talent at certain positions that make them just as equivalent to the Eagles, if not better. That's a Hall of Fame quarterback. That's a Hall of Fame defensive tackle. It's a Hall of Fame tight end. It's a Hall of Fame head coach and a Hall of Fame defensive coordinator. And that's why the Chiefs are masters and elite at winning the close games. And I think this will be a close game as we sit 2 weeks away. I think this could be one of those games where whoever has the ball last will win the game, much like it was 2 years ago. You are right that the Eagles are better. The Chiefs may not necessarily be better than they were from a talent standpoint, but to your point on resilience, they have so much experience. They have so much playmaking ability from offense and defense. They have so many guys who have been there and done it. They will not be afraid. They will be able to take a punch and counter punch. And I just look at this matchup as two unbelievably talented teams that are about to just slug it out once again.
They are the NFL's two best teams. And that's where I think we're going to get a really good game, Geoff. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a close game. But I think the big difference in this game is the Eagles' defense and their ability to stop teams, stop some of the more preeminent quarterbacks like they stopped Lamar Jackson. Vic Fangio, giving him 2 weeks to plan for a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. You're never going to stop Patrick Mahomes, just to be clear. but he can do different things to impede his production. I think that he can certainly do that. That I can't wait to see how that particular cat and mouse game goes between Vic Fangio and Patrick Mahomes goes. But this is the matchup that you could have. I think you may have even predicted this before the season, if I'm correct on that. This matchup.
Did I have Eagles Chiefs before the season? That is a great question. I would have to go back and look.
Either this year you had it right in 57. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is a really interesting storyline to see how the defensive coordinator looks to craft his game plan to try and neutralize Patrick Mahomes. And I think the tight end, Travis Kelce, didn't do a whole lot of damage yesterday, but the Eagles, by and large, have done a nice job in, limiting the damage from a tight end perspective. But Travis Kelce is a Hall of Famer, as you outlined. And I have to imagine that that's going to be an area that they're going to look to exploit, the middle of the Eagles defense.
Oh, I would think so. The voids in the zone that Vic Fangio is almost assuredly going to play against this Chiefs defense. I did, now that I recall, this year have a Lions-Chiefs Super Bowl. So I didn't have the Eagles. But 2 years ago, I believe I picked the Eagles-Chiefs. So let's talk about this element of the game that has already got me thinking. The Eagles have flourished in the playoffs on turnovers. That is where they've thrived. They have not turned the ball over themselves, and they have forced, 3, now 7, I think 9 play.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So I think it was 3, 2, 4, if my math is correct. Either way.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
The Chiefs have flourished in the playoffs by not turning the ball over. We know the Chiefs are not a very explosive team like they used to be. They are a methodical, deliberate team that protects the ball and doesn't turn the ball over. So whereas we talked about some of the game, the NFC Championship game against Washington and other games where we said, hey, whoever wins the turnover battle definitely wins the game, and that's been in favor of the Eagles. This one, I agree that whoever wins the turnover battle will win the game, just like 2 years ago. But 2 years ago, it was literally only one. It was the Jalen Hurts fumble that got returned touchdown by Nick Bolton. And that, to me, is a really interesting part going to this game, is that you probably have the two most ball-secure team. I don't care what the stats say on give. I know that they're both right up there on giveaways, but the point is they're very careful, very meticulous, very deliberate with the football, which means they're going to have to be very efficient offensively against each other because there's probably not going to be a whole lot of extra or stolen possessions.
And that's why, and this game's early, we're previewing it early, but I think the Eagles have the decided advantage in the running game with Saquon Barkley, who is very secure with the football. The Eagles have the imposing offensive line, which I believe will be the cheat code in this game. The Chiefs, I think, are going to have to take to the air. Now, that's not to say that Patrick Mahomes is suddenly going to put the ball in harm's way, but it certainly heightens the possibility of throwing a pass to a C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who has a propensity to jump routes and really take advantage of that. But I think the Eagles, knowing that they don't throw the football as much, I think it lessens their propensity to turn the football over. And I think they're going to be able to run the football on this team.
Yeah, as we take a quick look here of how this game matches up, we'll do this. We'll talk Eagles offense versus Chiefs defense at first. The Chiefs will be the best defense that the Eagles have faced in the playoffs. The second best one would be Green Bay. I believe they finished 5th overall in yards. In scoring, they were 5th overall as well. So, and Green Bay, we saw, gave the Eagles some problems offensively, especially in the pass offense. The Rams and Washington were not highly ranked defensively, but Kansas City, they're a top 10 defense in total yards, top 3 in scoring. And that with Chris Jones, they do things with Steve Spagnuolo that make it very difficult for quarterbacks to understand what's going on. And never was that illustrated better than the last play of the game for the Bills, where they brought a very exotic cornerback blitz and Josh Allen just had to heave the ball over to Schultz, which was actually a great throw.
It was.
Just wasn't caught. But that's the kind of day that the Eagles are going to be in for, is a whole lot of different kind of looks, a whole lot of exotic fronts that they're going to have to deal with that normally have given them trouble this year. So you're right. The best thing they can do is lean on Saquon Barkley like they've done all year. But I also can't help but think about that 4th down conversion that
To
Jalen
AJ.
Hurts to AJ
Yeah.
Brown, and what that might mean going forward for maybe unlocking the pass offense that we haven't seen in several weeks.
Yeah, that was really one of the few deep shots that the Eagles have taken in several weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But now that that's on tape, the Chiefs have to account for that. I thought that Kellen Moore, this is a sidebar, but I thought that he called a nice game in mixing things up and showing some variance in his play calls and putting it on tape at least so that the Chiefs have to prepare for that. They have to account for that. But that's to your point. I think they have, to a degree, unlocked the passing attack. I'm curious to see how they choose to utilize Dallas Goedert, because Dallas Goedert has been the Eagles' most effective option when the Eagles have taken to the air. And if you think back to Super Bowl 57, he had a remarkable game. I thought that that was one of the best I've seen Dallas Goedert play in terms of route running. I think he had a couple of nice sideline catches. I think he's going to be a big focal point in this game. So I don't necessarily know if they're going to have the deep shots available, because they do have a nice young secondary, but I think they'll be able to carve them up over the middle and the intermediary levels of their defense.
Yeah, you're right. It's such a stark contrast to 2 years ago when they had a lot of explosive plays through not only throughout the year in the pass offense, but even in the Super Bowl. And now you're seeing maybe one or two shots. We saw against the Rams in the snow that Jalen did try to take, I think, two shots. One, we saw AJ Brown was in his hands. He dropped it on the way down. And then there was another one in that game. So you're looking at an offense that's going to run the ball, but now with AJ Brown looking a little healthier and 2 weeks to prepare, and Jalen Hurts will obviously be a little healthier also with 2 weeks off. Now maybe you get 3 or 4 of those downfield shots. But I agree with you. I believe the pass offense, the way we've seen it the last few weeks, would be wise to run through Dallas Goedert in your short pass game, your RPO game. You want to stay ahead of the sticks. You want to continue to be a 4-down offense against a Chiefs defense that, you apply the same logic. You give Steve Spagnuolo 2 weeks to prepare for a quarterback. He's going to come up with some things. He's going to come up with some ways to break down protection schemes, and B, he's going to come up with ways to make the quarterback have to think after the snap. And that will truly be, as you said, the cat and mouse game, offense versus defense there.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. You covered Steve Spagnuolo, so you've seen, right? You've covered Steve, so you've seen his progression as a coordinator. But yeah, I think that is going to be the key when the Eagles do take to the air. I don't necessarily know if you're going to see the deep shots. Could be wrong, but the Chiefs have a nice young secondary that are adept at making plays on the football. And for an Eagles offense that's been conservative most of the season, I don't view it as all of a sudden they're going to be pass happy and take a bunch of chances. But the timing-based routes to Dallas Goedert, the slants to A.J. Brown, the short throws to Devontae Smith, I can certainly see that being a factor in a couple of weeks.
All right, let's flip it. Let's talk about the Chiefs offense against this Eagles defense. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show that both teams have flaws. They do an excellent job of having the talent to compensate.
They mask it, yes.
Right. The Chiefs are so good that they get away with having a very, I'm going to be nice here, adequate right tackle in Juwan Taylor. And at left tackle, they have moved their Pro Bowl left guard to left tackle. All pro, I believe Joe Thuney has been to left tackle. Now, maybe in 2 weeks, DJ Humphries is healthy. Maybe he's back left tackle. But they have managed to play with this guy Caliendo at left guard and Thuney at left tackle.
Frank?
he's doing impressions of a left guard, so Caliendo's hanging in there. But that to me just shows you how unflappable the Chiefs are, that they can move a guard who's never played tackle out to left tackle and be able to win games against some really good defensive fronts that they've had to play, including the Texans in the divisional round. That is their flaw, and they've masqueraded it because they protect the football and they know how to move the football against pretty much any defensive look. So while I expect the Eagles defense to show up, be good, Vic Fangio has 2 weeks, I'm not sitting here thinking that the Chiefs are going to have struggles, moving the ball. I think they're going to do what they do.
Oh, they're going to move the football, and they're going to kind of do that first drive from Washington, really that it was a death by 1,000 cuts approach for them. It was very methodical. That's what I would expect Kansas City to do, to try and continue to keep that offense on the field, keep the Eagles off the field, and bleed a lot of time with some timing-based routes. Patrick Mahomes doing his improv that he tends to do, and all those things that are special. They're going to move the football. It's just a matter of can the Eagles counter? And I think Vic Fangio has proven that he is adept at making adjustments in game. But you're right. If you look at both teams, Geoff, you're really hard-pressed to find an area of concern or vulnerability on either side. Chiefs, probably the offensive line because they have some players that are out of place. And maybe for the Eagles in the middle of that defense, if we're really trying to analyze it here, that's where I would expect them to kind of be able to find some success.
Yeah. As the more I think about it, the more this might be the type of – I thought the Super Bowl 2 years ago was just so – it was full of explosive plays. It was fun. It was – and this one will be too. But these two offenses might just – I don't want to say it's going to be a boring Super Bowl, but I think it's going to be so deliberate on both sides. Yes. That there could be times where you're like, man, can someone just, pop a 25-yarder or a 30-yarder here? Yeah, you're almost thinking it's going to be Saquon if it's going to be a big play, and those come like 2 or 3 times a game.
Because they're so conservative and they're all about ball security, you think it's going to be a sort of a grinded out type of game?
I do. I just think that these are two teams that thrive on ball control, time of possession. They get their explosive in different ways. The Eagles get theirs on the ground, mostly with Saquon Barkley. The Chiefs, every once in a while, will find Worthy, the rookie from Texas. They'll get an explosive to him. Or you've seen Travis Kelce in the divisional round. He had a 40-yarder because he was left wide open. I still don't ever understand how Travis Kelce can get wide open on certain top plays, but he does. So that's why he's a Hall of Famer. And, of course, you have to account for Mahomes, who will have something in his bag. I think in general, Andy Reid, as he always does, will have something different that the Eagles haven't seen in his bag for this game.
And you have to approach it like this. If the Chiefs have 8 drives, they're going to score on 6 of them. They find ways to punch it in, and that's why it's imperative for the Eagles to find ways to counterpunch. They're not going to be able to come up empty very often against a team like the Kansas City Chiefs. They're just programmed, however which way, to find the end zone. They don't have a ton of explosive playmakers, as you said. Even Travis Kelce, he has the body, he has the frame, and he knows how to get open. But he's not he doesn't have the long speed. He's not someone that's going to really threaten you vertically at this stage of his career. But he finds ways to get through, to make it work with savviness and things like that. But yeah, they're going to have to account for a lot of players.
All right, let's finish this discussion, this early Super Bowl LIX preview. I like LIX, Super Bowl LIX.
LIX.
Reminds
me of the band Kiss. The band Kiss.
I don't know why. Or Styx, because Styx was IX also, right? There you go. Special teams always plays a huge role in a Super Bowl. And it certainly did the last time around when Kadarius Toney returned a punt inside the Eagles 5, and that set up, I believe, the go-ahead touchdown for the Chiefs. This time around, I think the Eagles' kickoff coverage and punt coverage units and return units are awesome. And you saw that. They flexed their muscle. They've also caused 2 huge turnovers, right? Against the Packers, right? They had the opening.
Oren Burks forced the fumble on the kickoff,
right? And then again against the Commanders. However, the field goal, man. We know these games come down. A lot of these Super Bowls come down to long field goals at the last second, and it's going to be hard right now if the Eagles are a 52-yard kick away from either tying or winning this game. What do you think, the Eagles fan, if Jake Elliott walks out there down by 3 with 35 seconds left to kick a 52-yarder, what do you think the Eagle fan is going to look like in that moment?
They're going to be covering their eyes. Putting the bag over their head with the eyes cut out,
hiding behind the chair,
you name it, man. But I don't think Jake's done enough this season to instill a whole ton of confidence. The only thing is, and if we're kind of looking back at past history, he has made some big time kicks for the Eagles in the postseason. And if you're looking at it on the optimistic side, it would be indoors.
Yes, indoors, and then hopefully he makes the field goals and the PATs, and that.
But you got to stay PATs because that's not a given either.
Right. It does feel like if this game is tied within a minute and a half left, advantage Chiefs?
Yes.
I would think so.
Because Jake hasn't done enough this season to instill that kind of confidence and saying, oh, yeah, he'll figure it out. That would be blind faith. He just has not been consistent enough this season. And I'm curious to see how the Eagles would even play that in a 52-yard situation. Yeah, if they would be more adept at going for it, more inclined to go for it because of the maybe their confidence might be wavering a little bit based on what we've seen. Now it's a trend.
Yeah, well, one thing we've learned about the Chiefs this year is that their opponents have finally started to realize that you need to go for it on fourth down. You may not win, but that's what you have to do. That's how the Bills won the regular season matchup, and Josh Allen had the 26-yard touchdown on fourth down to pull away. The Texans, some people questioned it, but on 4th and 10, they went for it when it was still a one-possession game. Now, obviously, C.J. Stroud got sacked by Karlaftis on that play, but you saw the mentality there.
You have to be aggressive against a team like that.
Right. And the Eagles this year have not coached that way, but I imagine going into this game, they will feel that at certain points they will have to be aggressive on fourth down, if not every time.
Yeah, and they sort of flex their muscle at times. That 4th and 5 just yesterday to A.J. Brown was an example of Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni wanting to be aggressive. I think they'll pick their spots. I think they're going to do that because they have to do that if you expect to keep pace with the Kansas City Chiefs, because every time they have the football, every time Patrick Mahomes has the football, they're more often than not going to score.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Good stuff. All right. I can't wait. It's going to be an exciting week. What do we got in store this week as far as a practice schedule out yet, or is anything?
So that's not out yet, but you can expect when that is out, the DiCecco Dailies. You can expect the rookie diary with Will Shipley this week, Inside the Locker Room. We're going to have stories on InsideTheBirds.com. I hope everybody liked the Brad Childress interview. That was a lot of fun for me and great stuff. He's a great storyteller, and we had a great conversation. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out on our YouTube platform.
Great interview. It was a fantastic interview. What do we got on InsideTheBirds.com coming? I know you said you were working on something there.
Yeah, today I'm working on Tyler Steen story, Will Shipley story. We have the Jalen Hurts story yesterday that's up on the site, and of course the observations, and plenty more to come as we have the week-to-week coverage there, and the locker room opens. There's plenty of stories abound.
All right, great stuff. We will have this game covered from every angle. We'll have all of our normal shows and maybe even a couple of bonus shows on Inside the Birds this week, and of course our Patreon members will get extra bonus content as well. That's patreon.com/InsideTheBirds to become a member. And that's going to do it for this early look at Super Bowl LIX between the Eagles and Chiefs. Andrew, as we close it out, a friend of mine said to me, it's kind of interesting that as of recently, talking about the 2000s, the Eagles seemingly always have to go up against the guy considered the best QB in the sport. 2004, Tom Brady, 2017, Tom Brady, 2022, Patrick Mahomes, and now 2024, Patrick Mahomes again. They never get that off that year where it just, there's a surprise team coming out of the AFC. It's always got to be against the best.
Now, my one piece of advice, Geoff, on Radio Row, Andy Reid will not be on Radio Row. I'll never let you forget that.
All right, I've got to tell the people really quickly. Yes, last time we were all on Radio Row, and everybody knows that there's this Andy Reid impersonator who walks around and does his thing. And I was in the middle of talking to Andrew, like doing a live stream. I think we had somebody with us. And out of my peripheral vision, the corner of my eye, I see this guy who I think is Andy Reid walking in, and he's walking my way. And, I didn't even process the whole lookalike thing. And I pointed at him and waved. He pointed at me and waved. And then in that moment, I realized that I had just been duped. And
I think I was like, why would Andy Reid be on Radio Row? He's got a game to prepare for.
And all of that, I thought of it all as I was waving back and pointing, realizing, oh my God, that is not Andy Reid. But
you were like, and we were just, I just saw Andy Reid.
And that's what you have to look forward to on Radio Row. And of course, Inside the Birds will be represented on Radio Row Super Bowl week starting the following week. So I look forward to doing that with Adam, Andrew, and the entire Inside the Birds family. That's going to do it for this early Super Bowl preview of the Eagles and Chiefs. For Andrew DiCecco, I'm Geoff Mosher. Catch you all week on the Inside the Birds platform.